If this is your first time joining one of these nutritional talks, I'm Kori. I am an instructor. I do some fitness classes through Bennett Fitness for you guys, and I also am a personal trainer at Bennett Fitness, and I love nutrition as another side aspect that I love to offer to people. And so, Brad hollering in the background, former chef, I do love to cook, so that's part of all my fun things that I love to do, fitness, food, and teaching you guys stuff. So let's begin. Today we're going to talk about diet trends. How do you even choose? There's so much stuff out there. Many of us have these thoughts of losing weight, feeling better, or having more energy circling around our head. We don't really know where to begin. When searching the internet, I'm sure that there's a lot of information to weed through, or maybe you have a friend that is intermittent fasting, or you see on Instagram this person that did keto and lost 10 pounds and has all the energy in the world. But what's right for you? There's so much information out there, we don't even know. So there are a lot of different approaches to choose from. So I'm here, I'm going to teach you about 4 different approaches: paleo, Mediterranean, keto, and intermittent fasting, which actually isn't a diet, it's just a concept. We'll talk about that when we get there. It is possible to be healthy and fit whether you eat mostly meat or mostly vegetables, mostly fat or mostly carbs, many times a day or just a few times a day, so on. So all of these diets, I just want to preface that no one is better than the other. There's no one best diet out there. You'll notice that most have a lot in common and are more similar than you think. So during this talk, I want you to think about your lifestyle, what you like to eat, and what seems reasonable to you. The real work comes with a plan you can stick with. So keep that in mind as you listen to this today. So the first one we're going to talk about is the paleo diet. Paleo is based around the ideas that we adapted to eat certain kinds of food, but to stay fit and healthy and strong and even avoid some chronic diseases, that we need to eat in a way that mimics the diet of our ancestors. We eat the kinds of foods that they may have eaten by hunting, fishing, gathering, and avoid any foods that were common until farming began. So think vegetables, seeds, fruits, things that you can gather, fish and game, and other things people could gather or kill. So just think about that. Oh, you'll also drink plenty of water because they didn't have drinks in the past, and be very active. Think about them wandering and gathering food. So you want to make sure to be active. So let's go into the idea behind paleo is that today's processed foods aren't a good match for humans and lead to obesity, diabetes, and heart problems. There's some evidence that a simpler diet, like early humans used to eat, could actually be better for your health. So today, Americans survive on foods that are packaged and commercially prepared. So just so you know, the top 6 food sources in the US diet, think about what you eat. Do you fit into these top 6? Grain-based desserts, breads, chicken dishes, pizza, sweetened beverages, and alcoholic drinks. So those are the top things that us Americans seem to feed ourselves on a regular basis. These are not ancestral foods, nor would any nutrition expert even recommend any of these. So when people claim that our modern diet isn't healthy, they're actually very correct. So let's just kind of think about how do we compare to this? So now let's talk about on a paleo diet, what can you eat? The model of a paleo diet includes any animals, meat, fish, poultry, and most animal parts as well. People forget that you can eat the liver and people eat the heart, all that kind of stuff. It's actually quite healthy for you. Animal products, eggs and honey, any vegetables, fruits, nuts and seeds. Be mindful of not eating peanuts, coconut oil and milk, avocados, olives and olive oil. The last 2 are controversial. Some people say grass-fed dairy is okay. Some people say legumes are okay. Some people say not. But if you think about the Paleolithic back then, some people would live in one part of the world that had more or less vegetables and less meats. So it's not always one size fits all. Just thinking about different cultures or different parts around the world where they would gather, they may or may not have had cows and done dairy or goats and things like that. But you cannot eat, just think about processed foods, things like the common farming, what we use, that's most likely what they did not eat. So grains, beans, any and all processed foods, sugar, soft drinks, conventional dairy, artificial sweeteners, vegetable oils, and margarine. So if you really want to stick to the paleo, I want to encourage you to think about, often we go to the store and we see paleo cookies or paleo chips or all this paleo stuff, but again, it's a processed food item. So if you really want to be healthy on the paleo diet, you want to consider not buying things that have been prepared with paleo items and then processed into a cookie or a bread of some sort. So this is the paleo food pyramid. Often paleo diet is wrongly viewed as being meat only, no carbs approach to eating, which is actually not quite true. The emphasis is on fresh vegetables. So notice at the bottom, water, of course, is your main source of liquid. Fresh vegetables, then your meats and fish, fruit, nuts, oils, and then spices. So that's kind of like the pyramid that it goes in. You want to think about your base being fresh veggies, and then minimizing or avoiding grains would be more an accurate description. The good and not so good of the paleo diet. Let's talk about the pros. A paleo diet emphasizes whole foods, which is a massive improvement over the average Western diet, making fresh, unprocessed foods the basis of what you making fresh, unprocessed foods of what you eat does not mean that you'll stay away from processed foods. You just don't want it to be your main source of foods. It has made us be more aware of how processed and crappy a lot of our 21st century food is, and overall, we will likely feel more satisfied. And finally, another pro is it is effective in improving several chronic diseases. The cons, it is actually really tough to maintain if you're not really proactive in planning and grocery shopping and cooking food on your own. But also, sometimes having a list of good or bad or allowed or not allowed, it can be problematic for a lot of people because it leaves to anxiety or stress, like I'm not doing this right, I'm not doing, I can't do it all or nothing. Like if I can't do it all, I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to do it at all. And restrictive diets can also make deficiency more likely. So if you cut out food groups, it's hard. You have to work harder to replace what you're not getting. So it's just something to think about in that aspect of it. And then finally, you probably, at least as you begin, will have low energy. Carbs are your main body source of fuel, and a paleo diet, you do end up restricting carbs because you're not getting your grains, you're not getting the bready items. You just have to focus on good quality proteins and fats and vegetables for the most part, or fruits. So you can have an extreme decrease in energy, at least to begin with. So recap, we're going to finish up on paleo. The focus is on whole and fresh foods. Do think about eating more good quality protein. Avoid any and all processed foods. But another thing, I didn't really briefly touch on that, but it's nice. It does not involve counting calories or weighing food. You just focus on including good quality foods. The second one we're going to talk about is the Mediterranean diet. When you think of the Mediterranean, sometimes images of villas perched over sparkling seas, fresh fish, luscious produce, and of course, wine. It's all on the Mediterranean diet. Doesn't that sound quite engaging? The Mediterranean diet, though, is actually healthy for you. You stop counting calories, start thinking about how many vegetables, fruits, and whole grains and legumes you can stack in your day. It focuses on a specific dietary pattern rather than individual food. So it's more of what you can include, a pattern, and the emphasis, like we said, is on plants, plant fats, and seafood. But finally, which we'll talk into, it is adapting certain lifestyle practices. So it's not just about what you eat, but how, when, and what you eat. But one thing that I will preface is it's not necessarily designed for dramatic weight loss, if that's what you're looking for, in a short period of time. These Mediterranean-style foods can promote better health in general and may lead to a more sustainable weight loss over time. So what makes this notable? It's not just the food you eat, but the lifestyle you live. People in Spain and Italy that around the Mediterranean Sea, they buy foods locally. They harvest produce from their own garden. Eating locally is associated with better nutrition because you are eating local foods that are less processed. Cooking and eating tends to be slow, joyous, and social in community with others. It's like a holistic experience of not just downing our food. Eating slowly is linked to actually lower risk of obesity. So if you're looking to lose weight, actually, learning to eat slowly can help you moderate your food consumption and feel more satisfied. So learning to eat slowly, enjoying your time with others, and home-cooked meals, like if you eat at home with your family that you've cooked, you're more likely to eat fruits and vegetables because you're taking the time to prepare it. So let's compare that to our Western diet. How do you tend to eat your food? Think about your past couple meals or 2 or 3 days of food that you've eaten. Did you actually sit down and enjoy your meal slowly with family or friends? I know right now during COVID we're not really spending much time eating communally, but it's just something, hopefully we'll get back to that. Are your foods packaged? Do you go to the grocery store and go to the food bar? Well, they don't have food bars anymore. Or is that something what you used to do? And just buy it and eat your food in the car on the run. Or maybe sometimes, I know for me, I'll just I'm in a hurry, so I'll just eat dinner right over on this countertop, standing there without sitting down. So how long does it take to eat 2 meals? For us at dinner time, yeah, we do eat meals every night at home. We sit down at the table, but it is like scarf eat, Ellie bath time. Like we don't actually take time to enjoy our food together. So that would be something that we could work on. Let's break down them. So going back though, that's like kind of a pattern. Just thinking about how you eat your food. Do you enjoy your food and take the time with that? This is a Mediterranean diet pyramid. Start at the bottom again. It's just to reiterate being physically active, enjoying meals with others. So moving your body, spending time with others. The base of the diet is around fruits, vegetables, whole grains, olive oil. So beans and legumes, seeds and herbs. And then the next part is fish and seafood. Then our moderate poultry and eggs, cheese and yogurt. And finally, meats and sweets. So think of your red meats, and those kinds of things are less likely to eat. In moderation, wine is fine. Again, moderation, joyous occasions. And then every day, yes, as we all know, we should be consuming our water. So we'll just a brief breakdown so you can have a list of what this looks like. Eat large amounts of fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. Just enjoy those foods. Eat a moderate amount of your protein from seafood, legumes, or beans, poultry, eggs, and Greek yogurt. Reiterating, if you do any type, I'm just going to say this over again, if you do any type of meats or produce, if you can afford grass-fed, organic, or pasture-raised, or really quality, that's what you want to eat, what your animals are eating to get the good nutrients. And then fats from nuts, seeds, oil, olive oils, fresh and aged cheeses. And then a little amount of fat of animal-derived fats and protein from red meat. So it's not like cut everything out and then eat a very little amount of sweets and desserts. It's just kind of that moderation pattern. I'm going to try to fill my plate with fruits and vegetables, whole grains. I'm going to eat a little bit of this and very light amount of this. So it's never like never of one thing and avoid. There's none of that avoidance. It's more of including. What can you include in your diet? Just a few little basic substitutions that you can look at thinking about what your diet. Are you regularly cooking with butter? Try to substitute with olive oil. If you love to add bacon bits as like a crunch or something on your salad, try some toasted nuts and seeds instead. If you love cream cheese or mayonnaise as like a dressing or a spread, try avocado. It's a super healthy fat. And then if you're a red meat person, swap it out for salmon or some white fish, halibut, any of those. So just trying to think of swapping. Those are just some basic swaps that you can think on the Mediterranean diet. So we'll visit what are some pros. It became actually popular based on what a lot of people were already eating and doing. So some of these other diets that you made, not all of the ones that we're talking about, they're developed based on what should work, of studies that say, oh, this could or could not work. Or maybe an influencer got great results on, so they're saying eat this way. But people over history have eaten this way and showing that living their lives, it has a sustainable long-term approach of being healthy. It's associated with lower risk of chronic diseases, and it's not about eliminating bad foods. It's about allowing the treats to be treats and to be enjoyed on occasion with lots of gusto and pleasure. Just think about enjoying, but it's in moderation when you're with people and sharing in joyous occasions. It's easier to stick to because there's no calorie counting. The cons is actually not everybody agrees with this diet. You'll also hear people say, don't eat dairy, don't eat grains, all that kind of stuff. And so that's why people are like, I don't agree with this. I'm not going to eat grains. So that could be a con in it. But if it works for you, it works for you. And it doesn't come with strict rules, and not having strict, rigid rules can be actually complicated for people because nothing's excluded. So like, I don't really know what I should be doing, and then they end up eating everything. So it can be fuzzy and can make it seem complicated if you like rules and meal plans. So eating more like a traditional Mediterranean and you'll experience health benefits. So you focus on I'm just going to eat what they tell me to eat, and that's going to be my goal. But if you live like one, thinking about buying food locally, maybe growing some tomatoes, like harvesting, if you can, you have a porch or whatever, eating joyously with people, communally, sitting down and eating slowly, letting your meal last for an hour if we have time. I mean, our society doesn't allow this, but that's what the Mediterranean is like, trying to adjust your way of eating into a different pattern. So if you can live like a Mediterranean, that's next level stuff. Let's recap the Mediterranean diet. It's not just about what you eat, but where, why, and how you eat, like I just discussed. And then it is a daily consumption of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and healthy fats. The fish and seafood are not on the daily consumption. It's just all in moderation. So let's move on. So those are the top two. First two. We're gonna move on to the keto diet. This is a diet that people talk about all the time. I'm doing keto. Let's talk about it. So it is the most restrictive and limited of all eating trends. Many people argue that by eating a lot of fat and close to zero carbs, that you can enjoy enhanced health, a good quality of life, better performance, brain function, or even abs that you can grate cheese on. People want those abs. But it may or may not be right for you. So what it is focusing on minimal carbohydrates. We're going to really break this down in a minute. Moderate amounts of protein and high healthy fat. The key word being healthy fat. This is the keto food pyramid. I'm trying to show you guys all pyramids so you kind of get just an idea of the differences or similarities. The bottom, so 70% of your daily calorie consumption needs to be fats, which we'll talk about, but including healthy fats, healthy oils, avocados, cheeses, coconuts, things like that. 25% of your diet needs to be protein. I will reiterate that it's hard to do keto, vegan or vegetarian, just saying it's harder, but you can. But you'll see this is all mostly just animal protein. And then only 5% of your calories are carbohydrates. That's a really small amount when I start to break it down for you. So with the keto diet, careful planning, you have to have careful planning. It's not something that you can just say, I'm doing keto and eat a lot of fat. You have to know what you're putting in your body. Excuse me. And so you have to be intentional. We'll talk about that as we proceed. So I just want to sorry about the sciencey stuff. I'm just going to do this quickly so you have an understanding of why people do high fat, low carbs. When you're doing keto, you're trying to get your body into ketosis. So you want to make your body think you're fasting without actually fasting. You can still eat fat foods. So you're eating really low amount of carbs and high, high fat. This causes your body to go into ketosis, meaning your body uses your fat instead of energy for glucose. Glucose meaning carbohydrates. You're starving your body of carbohydrates, which forces you to burn fat instead. So by cutting off your body's carbohydrates or glucose, you provide energy and nutrients in the form of fat, plus a little protein. You do need a little protein. And we can get basically the same effect as starving ourselves. So your body's breaking down carbohydrates instead of breaking down carbohydrates as its preferred source of fuel, we are now in ketosis using a fat burning state, breaking down fat as energy. It usually takes some time to get into ketosis once we stop eating carbs. You can't just say, I'm gonna do it and be in ketosis tomorrow. It could take some people 2 weeks, it could take some people a month, some people it could take 2 months. It takes time and dedication. I do want to preface though, it may be helpful for some others and not others. For women particularly, lowering carbohydrates can actually have some negative effects. So you really want to think about your body and notice how you're feeling when you do that. Women's bodies go on high alert faster when they sense less energy and fewer nutrients come in. Many have found that a low carb diet worked for their husbands and not for them, and maybe even knocked their menstrual cycle out the door because their hormones got all out of whack. And I will say that actually happened to me. Brad and I for a while were doing keto. It messed with my hormones. I didn't do well with it. I didn't love it. Brad had all the energy in the world. He lost some weight. So just letting you know, you have to really pay attention to how you're feeling and what's happening to your body when you do keto. Because you can also potentially develop nutritional deficiencies if continued for a long period of time. So you can't just do keto all the time if you're not doing it well and properly. So we're just going to talk down what you can eat before I go into more depth. Large amounts of healthy fats. You can read the list. Again, these are healthy fats. Don't just eat don't just throw in like vegetable oils on everything. You have to eat high quality fats, small amounts of protein. Again, quality protein if you can, it's the best. And then small amounts of very low carbohydrate vegetables, meaning we're not eating potatoes, we're not eating the starchy vegetables, not even carrots or beets. Leafy greens, brassicas are like Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, asparagus, cucumber, celery. So very low carbohydrates. So those are just kind of a brief list of what you can eat, but you can't just eat it, you have to track it. I'll talk about that in a second. I do want to talk about clean keto versus dirty keto. There are some people I know, they say they're doing keto and they're eating bunless bacon cheeseburgers. They're putting sour cream on everything. They're buying keto cups at the grocery store and anything they're buying packaged keto foods. You can still see results or see changes in your body if you do dirty keto. If you're looking for like body composition, you can probably still see that, but ultimately you're not feeding your body with healthy food. So the best way is to go with clean keto food and eating, again, whole unprocessed foods, good quality vegetables, fats, proteins, which we'll talk about. So just to be mindful of some people I know, people who do keto, and they just they make all these keto breads and keto things, which is fine, but it's also, you're not really feeding yourself with quality high fat foods, because if you're going to put that much fat in your body, it should be fat that your body can utilize. So I'm going to break down what a ketogenic diet looks like. This is just a spreadsheet of showing you the different types of diets and the protein to fat to carb variants. So you'll notice the top two, it's pretty similar, like protein 30% from a mixed meal, meaning just like kind of a basic everyday people are eating healthfully, would be 30% of their diet is protein, 40% carbs, 30% fat. So you can look at those ones and kind of see the comparison. But finally, the keto is 25% of your food is protein, only 5% carbs, 70% fat. The main thing about keto is keeping that carb low, fat high with a minimal amount of protein. You have to track it. You have to be mindful of it. And then the carbs, which I'll talk in just a minute, is net carbs, which means grams of carbs minus fiber. Fiber isn't counted when you track carbs because it's not digested. So if you end up doing it, you have to take away the fiber from your carbs, which I'll give an example. So for an example, if you decide that you are going, so 5% would be an example. Sorry, let me backtrack. 5% of your carbs, an average person should consume 15 to 30 grams of carbs a day. So if you were to eat one apple during the day, that actually has 20 net carbs. So essentially, you've eaten all your carbs for the day with that one apple. The rest of the day, you would have to focus on only fat and only protein. So eating like oil and butter on a steak, that's basically all you're eating. And you may have leeway for about 10 other carbs. So maybe you could add 1 cup of cucumbers. So if you cut up cucumbers, 1 cup of cucumbers only has 3 carbs. So you could track that in. So I guess you could have an apple and a cup of cucumbers, and there are your carbs for the day. If you wanted, we'll go through a list that says what to avoid, but say you wanted to somehow fit in some rice. Half a cup of brown rice has 18 grams of carbs. So basically you've almost knocked yourself out of your carb content. Or if you're not eating meat and you're going to try to just do beans and legumes, half a cup of beans has 12 grams of carbs. So it's a little bit lower, but still that's a decent amount of carbs in your day for not a lot of protein yet. And so those are just some examples to think about what a little amount of carbs that you can actually eat. I'll show it a little bit of an example in a second. So that's why most people say on keto, you cannot eat dairy, you cannot eat fruit, you cannot eat beans, legumes, starchy vegetables, or sweet potatoes, because they do have a higher content and you can only eat the smallest and smallest amount. So you really have to be mindful of that. So these are things that you can't eat. So let's look at what it would look like. So these are just, if you want to kind of just peruse at the plates, it kind of gives you an idea of like the mixed meal of having, you do have a little brown rice, you do have some asparagus. But if you look down at the keto picture, you're basically on a diet. You're eating, so 75% is your fat. So you see they have the butter on their asparagus and on their steak. Avocado is high fat as well. Your carbs is your asparagus for your meal, and then you have a steak for your protein. So that would be just an idea of what a plate of keto food would look like if you're doing, like they show kind of asparagus and chicken thighs, and there's more carbs in the other one. So that would just give you an idea. Or you can, since we talked about paleo, you can look at the paleo, what that looks like. So obviously they're not eating any grains, but they do allow themselves, oops, I didn't mean to do that yet. A little bit of, so an apple would be more it would be a bit of carbs, but it's not a grain. So just something to think about. But also, it's important to note though that high healthy fat foods are actually small in terms of volume. So even though they're high in calories, sometimes if you decide you want to eat like a spinach salad, you'll actually have more volume of spinach on your plate than maybe your fat. For example, 2 cups of spinach is only 1.5 net carbs. So 2 cups of spinach is like, say, this much, and it's only 1.5 carbs. So you can eat a ton of greens. You can eat a ton of that on a ketogenic meal, but you just have to be mindful of all the other added carbs with anything that's on a higher carb scale. Which, if you're interested in carb, there's a lot. I mean, if you're interested in keto, there's a lot of information out there that can kind of show you what would fit into your diet of that. I'm just trying to give you an overall view of is this something you think you want to do? Can you eat very high in fat? Is that something that your lifestyle leads to? Low in protein, close to no carb as possible. Very limited in food choices, and takes careful planning. And it does, you can see results if you do this, but you have to be mindful. You can have good energy, you can lose fat, but it may or may not be right for you if there's other health concerns that you may want to stay away from. So it's one that I would encourage you to do more research, realize, is this going to fit in your lifestyle and give you the lifestyle that you want to lead and the health benefits that you want. So we're going to finish up with intermittent fasting. A lot of people have questions about intermittent fasting. It is actually a concept, not a diet. It includes periods of fasting and non-fasting over a period of time. We all actually do forms of intermittent fasting every day. We call it sleeping. So we all fast for some period of time. But nowadays, our fasting windows are a lot smaller because of the TV and the internet and entertainment, that we're up late hours of the night, snacking all day long. So we don't actually have a longer window to allow our body to be in the fasting state long enough. Let's say after some time of fasting, so when you do fast, it does put your body into a ketosis state. So like we talked about fat burning, that's one of the benefits of intermittent fasting, because you don't have carbohydrates available anymore to use because it's done digesting. So then it exhausts those carbohydrate stores and then starts burning fat. It also promotes this state called autophagy, which it's a process by which your body rids itself of unneeded damaged cells. So your body is essentially, your healthy cells are eating the bad cells if you periodically get into this intermittent fasting state. It's a helpful tool, but it's not an end-all be-all tool for being healthy and fit. So how does it fit in? It's actually a great way of intentionally practice being hungry. If you want to get fit and stay fit, you kind of need to be able to manage the feeling of hunger, which I think a lot of us are afraid of, or they don't like that feeling. If you learn how to manage it, because of hunger, you're less likely to react compulsively to it. So if you're new to intermittent fasting, you will be hungry, and often we're like, oh my goodness, I have to eat, I'm hungry. But learn to know the difference. Are you actually hungry, or is your head just telling you that it's time to eat? It can be an advanced strategy to leanness. It's nice to have, but unnecessary to get in shape. You don't have to do intermittent fasting to have a great body or to feel healthy. It's just another way that people do go about doing it. but also intermittent fasting is insufficient. You can't just intermittent fast and then eat like crap during your eating windows. So we have our fasting versus our feeding. Fasting interval is the last meal of the day, so like your dinner, and then the feeding is till your first meal of the day, which is your breakfast. And then the feeding window would be the time of your first meal, so your breakfast till your last meal of the day, which would be dinner, or if you nighttime snack. So put in simple terms, if you typically end dinner at 8 p.m. and eat breakfast at 8 a.m., that's you're fasting for 12 hours, and then you're feeding for 12 hours. So let's talk about a few of the most popular, the fasting windows. Time-restricted eating is the one you've probably heard about a lot. 16 hours of fasting, 8 hours of feeding. It is the most popular. So say you want to pick an 8-hour window that you would eat. A lot of people, they kind of more think about when do I stop eating dinner. So you stop eating dinner at 7. So you want to give yourself a 16-hour fasting window. So you would fast till 11. So you'd have breakfast at 11, and then your feeding window would be till 7. So you only allow those 8 hours of time to eat food. Eat, stop, eat is a 5-day feed. So you're eating for 5 days, fasting for 2, not in consecutive days. So, but during those 2 days that you're fasting, you can have around 500 to 700 calories. It's really limited, so you have to be, but quality calories. You want more higher fat, a little bit of protein. Think about the keto that we just talked about. So your body is still burning fat for fuel. Alternate day fasts, these are a little bit longer. Not many people do these. These would be one you could do every week, maybe once a month. 36-hour fast. So for example, you stop eating dinner one evening, and then you fast all the way. So tonight you would stop eating. You wouldn't eat all the way tomorrow till breakfast the next day. And then you would eat for 12 hours. And then the warrior diet, there are people that do this one pretty regularly. They only pick 4 hours that they want to eat. You can pick whatever 4 hours that be. If you love to eat in the night, and some people who I just really like to eat at nighttime, they pick maybe they eat from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. So they like that feeling of fullness, and then they take 20 hours to fast. So that's another one. Oh, let me go back. The eat, stop, eat. That one's actually really flexible though, so you can choose which 24 hours. Some people like to do breakfast to breakfast. Some people like to do dinner to dinner. You could even do lunch to lunch. It doesn't really matter. You just pick the 2 days. Let's kind of wrap up through this so we can have questions, hopefully. So what can you consume while fasting? Water. So while you're fasting, you want to think about low to no calorie, or basically no calories. Because remember that foods and drinks containing calories, although they're healthy, they do break your fast. But if you're in ketosis, it's okay. You're still burning fat for fuel. So water, coffee and tea, diluted apple cider vinegar. It can help stay hydrated and prevent cravings. So adding it to water. Healthy fats, if you put that in your coffee. We did a reel the other day with fat-fueled coffee, MCT oil. We're not necessarily fasting. We just do it, add some protein. Anyways, but if you want to see how to do it, we have a reel on our Instagram about that. And bone broth, it's a rich source of nutrients. So those are all great things that you can do to while you're fasting. If you feel like you need something, those are some things that you can add. So let's talk about some tips and tricks. This is a self-experimentation and lifestyle matching what is really important to you. You have to decide if it's right for you or not. If you want to maximize results, you'll have to figure out how you respond by either eating breakfast or skipping breakfast. Think of your schedule that you normally live, and you also have to think about your own self-discipline. What are you willing to stick to? Start slow and simply and small. It doesn't have to be all at once. Maybe you just adjust your meal times by 1 hour. If you regularly get up and eat breakfast at 8 a.m. every morning, maybe you're gonna I'm gonna just try to push it till 9 a.m. Then maybe after a couple of days, you're gonna push it to 10 a.m. So just start small. Give it time. It does take time. It's not something that's gonna happen right away. Focus on the quality of the process, not the outcome. I said this earlier, to learn the difference between head and body hunger. So are you actually hungry, or is your head just telling you you want to eat? And then learn not to fear hunger. We have a rumbly tummy and we feel we have to eat, but your body will be fine. You don't have to eat when you have a rumbly tummy. You can lose fat if you're careful about it. One thing I want to say is what you do eat is as important as what you don't eat. So during your fasting window, make sure that you're putting good food in your body. It's not a way that you can just eat cake and cookies and all day because you did your fasting thing. So think about that. And you do want to exercise, but don't overdo it. A few points of when it might not be healthy is if you fast too long, too often, your body still needs good nutrients. You can't just fast and your body will start losing muscle mass. It will start actually eating itself away, which is not good. If you're over exercising and not getting enough sleep, that could be when it's not healthy. Children and teens shouldn't do intermittent fasting if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, if you have diabetes or blood sugar or eating disorders. This can also be tough with those who have binging disorders or anorexia. This is just kind of gives them leeway to be able to do that stuff, so that might not be the most healthy thing for them. And finally, don't neglect the fundamentals. Like I said, you still want to consume minimally processed foods, eat a lot of lean protein, veggies, fruits, a lot of stuff that we talked about in the past. You still want to feed your body with those good quality foods. It doesn't give you an out to eat crappy food. And so avoid foods that are calorie dense, all those great things. Finally, let's recap. So we want to focus, it's an eating pattern that switches between fasting and eating, so focusing on your window. It's intermittent and flexible, part of your routine. So think about your routine, what would work for you. It's not an obligation, and it shouldn't create more stress to your body or to yourself. It should be something you're willing to do and that you want to do. And focus on when to eat and not what to eat. So you're really focusing on your time frame. So what can we do today with all of this? Consider the good things about each one that we talked about. Notice they do include fresh food, fresh air, lots of movement, and enjoying communal eating. And think, how can you get just a little bit better today? Think how you could move along the spectrum from 21st century life and food to choices that are just a little bit more in tune. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. Keep it simple and sane. Just do a few things pretty well. It's much better than getting a lot of things perfect. You really want to help your body do its job. You only have this one body, so give it what it needs. You know what is necessary and sufficient for a healthy body. Deep down, we all have some understanding of what is good for us, like eating good quality food in the right amount. These are, and then also learning to prepare healthy foods. These are enough for most people to get in shape. Yes, you can pick a diet, you can pick a trend that will help you, but ultimately we all kind of know what works best for us. So let's take these steps to learn the essentials of good nutrition, choose to make smarter choices in our body that can fuel us, and choose to make smarter choices to ultimately fuel your body what it truly needs to survive. So hopefully you guys got some takeaways. Maybe you want to try one of these, maybe you don't, maybe you're going to take some bits and pieces, but I would love to answer some questions. If anybody wants to, I should have said this at the beginning, I'm sorry. If you want to type in a question, or actually you want to just unmute yourself, as long as we're not, I'm going to stop share, as long as we're not over talking anybody. I'd love to hear if anybody has any questions. You can add it in the chat button, or you can unmute yourself and ask it. Questions on anybody trying keto or intermittent fasting themselves already and they're struggling with something, or...
I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry, so I actually have been practicing intermittent fasting for the last maybe 4 or 5 years.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like it fits really well with like my work style and my lifestyle, like where I just skip breakfast.
Right.
Is there something that could help, like what would be like the perfect meal to have as a first like break from the fasting?
Yeah, you want to start a lighter meal, like vegetables, fruit, nothing like no heavy fats, no heavy carbs, because your body has been something that's going to be easier to digest, something that's lighter, rather than just bombarding yourself with a ton of calories. So work your way, or maybe a smoothie, something light like that.
Okay. And then for that dinner, because I typically try to do like the 8-hour like window to eat all my calories.
Yeah.
What would be like a good like meal that you feel that you're like, this is a good dinner meal, like as your last meal of the day, especially if I'm having like a smaller, lighter meal in the beginning?
I would say you could do, I mean, not obviously super heavy, but it's a good quality of whether you eat your protein. I don't know if you're vegetarian or not. A good protein, good source of carbohydrate, but also think about vegetables. I would just say a mix of everything. Like think about that mixed meal plate that I kind of gave you. 40% protein, 30% 40% carbs, 30% protein, 30% fat. So whatever that would be for you and what fits in your life and what your protein or what your carbs are that you like to eat. So not ton of fat or ton of protein, just a nice healthy mixed meal.
Okay. And then, sorry, I have another question.
Yeah.
For the weekends, I typically like to have like a cheat day.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like recommended in a way or not? I just want to make sure like I don't mess something up.
Some people actually really like to do that. And then something that you could do then to kind of offset that, I'm not going to say don't have a cheat day, we all want to enjoy our stuff, is maybe make your fasting window a little bit longer the next day. Allow yourself a little bit more time to digest all that other food that you did. So that's another way that you can do that. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, so help offset that extra stuff that you ate.
Okay.
Great. It looks like I have a few other, you good?
Yeah, thank
Great.
you.
Sometimes I start the day, I unintentionally keto, but don't finish that way. Is it bad to eat high-fat breakfast and not doing keto? So your body won't get into the ketosis state of fat burning, so you are giving yourself more fat in the day, which is fine, but if you're eating that high of fat, you could more likely end up eating more calories than your body actually needs. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing to start high fat in the morning, but you just want to be mindful of, at the end of the day, are you over-exceeding the amount of food that your body actually needs for the day? Because if you eat a lot of fat and then at the end you eat more carbs. So it's not bad, you can do it that way, but you just want to make sure that you're not overeating calories in general. So did that answer your question?
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thoughts on carb cycling, eating no carbs one day moderate carbs, and high carbs, no carbs. That actually is very beneficial for some people. They love to do it that way, but you want to think about your high carb day would be more of like the day you're doing more activity. Your low carb day or your no carb day would be the day that you have like a rest day, because your body needs carbs to break down if you're going to be really active. So that cycling really does help make you more metabolically flexible, and then your body utilizes the carbs on your activity days rather than not. Did that answer your question? Great, thanks. A few more examples of fats to eat on keto. Any good sources of recipes? Oh, I don't have off the top of my head a recipe website. Well, we do Bulletproof. We've done the Bulletproof diet. They have a lot of good recipes on their website or their book. But more example of fats. Honestly, if you think about, I would say olive oils, butter, any nut butters, but you have to be careful. Some nuts have higher carbs than others. Coconut oils, coconut milk. Those are just some good, healthy. It's really restricted. There's not a lot. You have to stick to just those few. Avocado is great, but also there are carbs in avocado. There's fiber too, so it makes the net carbs lower, but it's not a pure fat. Is that good? Did that answer your question? Great. Any other questions? Thanks for watching all that. I know it was long. There was a lot of information, but hopefully maybe you took a little gold nugget here and there, or you want to try out one of those diets. So let us know what you think in the comments below, or if you have any more questions, we're happy to answer them for you and help you along on your food journey, which hopefully will help you get fitter and stronger. Food and fitness and nutrition is all part of what we're here for, and we want to help you on your journey. So leave a comment, check out our other videos, maybe get an exercise workout in now that you just sat here and watched this for 30 minutes or so. You need to go move those feet. Do that, and we'll see you next time.